and welcome back on Lit Up with Annie. So we have reached the next part in the course Literary Theory, Feminisms. We've covered structuralism, post-structuralism and psychoanalytic criticism. This is the fourth part of literary theory, feminism. I'm sure that you're all familiar with what feminism actually is, right? Let's begin. Feminism is not just, going out and talking about how little things and calling it feminism. In fact, nowadays it's also become a joke. Many people joke about it. Many people come out and say, आप बड़ा feminist बन रहे हो, आप ऐसे हो रहे हो. मतलब it has become somewhat a joke also. But it's very important to understand that what feminism actually stands for. It's both a political stance and a theory, and it focuses on gender as a subject of analysis, not just female. It focuses on gender in total, and it puts it into analysis. And how? While reading cultural practices and as a platform to demand equality. When you're going to read some cultural practices, anything in the culture, you're going to analyze how gender is put there. And feminism is also a platform to demand equality. Feminism's key assumptions mainly क्या है? Gender roles are predetermined and the woman is trained to fit into these roles. जो feminists थे, beginning, early feminists especially, they started talking about gender roles. And they started saying that gender roles are predetermined and woman is trained to fit into these roles. How? When a child is born, whether a boy or a girl, उनकी हरकतें अलग होती हैं क्या? ऐसा है क्या कि लड़का जो पैदा होता है वो अलग हरकतें करता है और लड़की जो पैदा होती है वो अलग हरकतें करती है? ऐसा तो नहीं है ना. They are born as human beings, their behaviors are same. But when they enter this society of ours, they are trained in a certain way. We don't treat them as equal. We treat a baby boy differently than a baby girl. Especially older people. Even now we don't realize, some things. And we do it. बेबी गर्ल पैदा हो गई है तो नर्सरी पिंक बना देंगे. बेबी बॉय पैदा हुआ है तो नर्सरी ब्लू बना देंगे. दे विल बाय देम क्लोथ्स. ओ बेबी स्मॉल बेबी, you won't buy pink color for your baby boy. And then when the child grows up a little, starts playing with toys, you buy dolls for the girls, you buy cars and trucks for the boy. What are we doing? We are training both the boy and the girl in a certain way. Woman, when the girl grows up more, she is trained to fit into the roles. Like, you have to behave in a certain way in front of others. You have to sit in a particular way. You have to talk in a particular way. If you are not very bubbly, then you won't be liked. If you talk too much, then there is a problem. If you talk very less, then there is a problem. There's a problem in everything. So these are some of the key assumptions that feminism focuses upon. Literary, the feminist theory and cultural theory draws a link between the representation of women in art, the real material condition in which they live. Feminism, literary theory है, cultural studies के अंदर भी हम feminism को पढ़ते हैं. जो ये theory है, it draws a link between certain things. For example, the representation of women in art. मतलब how women are represented in novels, in movies, in TV shows. And number two, what are the real conditions, the material conditions in which they live in the society? Is there a link between the two? Feminist theory argues that that the representation of women as weak, docile, innocent, seductive, or irrational sentimental is rooted in social conditions where she does not have power, is treated as a sex object or a procreating machine, has fewer political and financial rights, and is abused. So, again, feminist theory also talks about the representation of women. You must have seen so many older movies, especially Abhi Aajkal. I would still say that women are being represented in a little different way, not completely. Even those women centric movies or women centric TV series still have so many things which are hopeless, but still. थोड़ा सा पहले की representation देखेंगे तो women are shown as weak creatures, docile, very innocent creatures, as if उनको कुछ पता ही नहीं है लाइफ में, seductive और irrational sentimental. मतलब जैसे let's take an example, think about any of the Hindi TV serials and think about the role of any of the women characters or the protagonist, let's say. She is weak. How? She cannot do anything without her husband. She is she doesn't know anything. She's that innocent. I would not even call it innocent, but that representation is, I would say, dumb. हम लोग जब क्लास करते थे पहले, लाइव क्लासेस चलती थी, तो माई स्टूडेंट्स यूज टू गिव दिस एग्जाम्पल ऑफ गोपी बहू, a serial, Hindi TV serial. So there is a scene, I've seen the meme only, but it is extremely funny and sad at the same point. That woman character is shown, what she does is she sees the laptop of her husband and she thinks, oh, it's very dirty, and she goes and washes it in the sink. Laptop को धो देती है. अब आप उसको innocence कहोगे या dumbness कहोगे कि आप वुमेन कैरेक्टर को इस तरह से शो कर रहे हो कि आजकल छोटे बच्चे को भी पता है कि इसको हमने पानी के नीचे धोना नहीं है, तो उस वुमेन कैरेक्टर को ये नहीं पता कि लैपटॉप या मोबाइल को धोते हैं कि नहीं धोते हैं. देन शी इज शोन एज अ सिडक्ट्रेस और सेक्स ऑब्जेक्ट. उसका यूज, व्हाट इज द यूज? as she is being represented as somebody is going to fulfill the fantasies of the male character. Irrational, she is sentimental. She does not have any power, yes, absolutely. She cannot take any decision. She has to rest upon the final decision of her husband or other members of the family. And then she is treated as a sex object or a procreating machine कि बच्चा पैदा करना है और कुछ नहीं. She has fewer political and financial rights. अपना बैंक अकाउंट भी नहीं है, पॉलिटिकल राइट्स तो हैं ही नहीं. जो घर में बोलेंगे जिसको वोट करना है उसी को वोट करना है. एंड शी इज़ अब्यूज्ड. these are some of the arguments of feminist theory. Feminist literary cultural critics assume that cultural texts such as cinema, TV soap opera, music, painting parallel and duplicate real life power struggle between genders. Cultural texts naturalize the operation of women, oppression, there should be oppression, through their stereotypical representation of women as weak or vulnerable, seductress, obstacle, sexual object or a procreating device. Again, these cultural critics, they assume कि जो ये cultural texts हैं, जैसे कि TV serials हैं, है ना, soap operas हैं, movies हैं, या music है, या paintings हैं, ये क्या करते हैं? ये real life power struggle जो चल रहा है gender के बीच, different genders के बीच, उसको duplicate करते हैं. लेकिन these cultural texts also try to naturalize the oppression of women through stereotypical representation of women. For example, in so many movies or so many soap operas, they naturalize it by showing that a woman who is very dedicated towards her husband, dedication is good, right? But they show it to another level altogether. Uh, that even small decisions for her has to be taken or finalized by the male character. All of this is shown as natural, कि ये तो नेचुरल ही है. बड़े डिसीजंस जो हैं वो एक मेल मेंबर ऑफ द फैमिली लेगा, या उसका हस्बैंड लेगा, या उसका फादर लेगा उसकी लाइफ के, और ये नेचुरल है. ऐसी लड़की को अच्छा दिखाया जाता है. Then the woman who's dressed in Indian attire, full, covered with clothes, is also shown very nice and very sushil. But on the other hand, if they want to represent a modern girl who takes her own decisions, she is dressed in altogether different attire. She's dressed in Western attire. How these representations are different. Even by clothes they show this. Even by the language they show it. So the feminist theorists say that these cultural texts like novels or TV soap operas or music or paintings, they all try to naturalize this oppression of women. This is oppression only. दबाया जा रहा है. Through how? Their stereotypical representation of women. They show women as weak or obstacle or sexual objects or a procreating device. Religion, family, education, art, knowledge systems are all social and cultural structures that enable the perpetual reinforcement of this inequality. There has to be so many things in the society who make this possible, make this oppression possible. So there are so many establishments. सबसे पहले religion. In so many ways, religion tries to naturalize certain things. Now, there is, on one hand, there is your personal religion, your faith, your beliefs, which is inside you, which is very pious, which is very pure. On the other hand, there is this, I would say, social religion, जिसमें क्या है, that people try to tell you that you have to be religious in a certain way. If you want to show your dedication towards the higher power, you have to behave in a certain way. Who said that? वो तो सोसाइटी ने बना दिया है ना. उस सोशल रिलीजन की हम बात कर रहे हैं, that social religion tries to naturalize gender roles. Then family, सबसे बड़ा, how you're raised in your family, education, arts, everything, knowledge system, they're all social and cultural structures that enable the perpetual reinforcement of this inequality. These structures are effective means of reinforcing male domination. कि मेल डोमिनेंस बनी रहे, उस चीज़ के लिए ये लोग सब काम करते हैं साथ में. All these structures are effective means of reinforcing male domination. Same things we're going to read in Marxism also. Between upper and lower classes. How the upper classes try to maintain their dominance through cultural artifacts. Similarly, how male dominance is maintained through these structures in society. Because they do not appear oppressive. आप रिलीजन के नाम पे बहुत कुछ करा सकते हो और आगे से जवाब नहीं आएगा. फैमिली के नाम पे, एजुकेशन के नाम पे. Because they do not appear oppressive. तो कौन कौन सी चीज़ें हैं? Cinema, TV soap opera, etc. They naturalize oppression of women. They represent her as weak sexual objects. Discourse of religion, family, etc. They help in keeping this inequality, maintaining this inequality. This feminism lecture can go on and on and on, but we don't have that much time. But I'll be dividing this lecture, otherwise it will be very long. Now, since the 1990s, this stance of feminists has been questioned, mainly by the third world women thinkers. अब देखो feminism में भी बहुत सारी waves हैं. First wave, second wave, third wave. Now, sometimes people also say that fourth wave has emerged or is emerging. Inside feminism also, because it is a political stance, there have been differences. For example, when this feminist movement began, I would say that because it was very early, it was, the first of the women who were trying to do something good for other women, but they could not go very far. जहाँ तक उनसे हो पाया उन्होंने बोला. But of course, when things evolved and other women came, they found problems with their stance, and they said, okay, this is problematic and this should be the thing. Then others came and they found the second one problematic. I'll give you an example. जैसे स्टार्टिंग में क्या हुआ, सिस्टरहुड की बात हुई कि सारे विमेन जो हैं, हम सिस्टर्स हैं, हम लोग साथ में चलेंगे, ये वो सो. लेकिन बाकी विमेन जो बाद में आई, उन्होंने कहा व्हाट सिस्टरहुड, यू हैव नो आइडिया अबाउट आर ऑपरेशन बिकॉज यू आर वाइट विमेन थी स्टार्टिंग में जिन्होंने सिस्टरहुड के बारे में बात किया. ब्लैक और विमेन ऑफ कलर, दे सेड you are not oppressed as much as we are oppressed. We are doubly oppressed. You're only oppressed as women, but we are oppressed as a woman and as a woman of color. So there is no sisterhood because what we suffer, you don't know that. So this is how differences also came. Therefore, 1990s में the stance of feminists has been questioned mainly by the third world women thinkers. The post-colonial feminists suggest that the category women itself is a dominating ideology because it sees only white women and their lives as standards. जैसे हम cultural studies की बात करते हैं ना, when cultural studies as a different field emerged, तो क्या हुआ, उन्होंने कहा था कि अगर हम culture की बात करते हैं, अगर जैसे आप imagine करो, मैं आपको बोलूँ culture, इंडिया का culture, हमारे सबके दिमाग में जो कल्चर की एक इमेजिनेशन आती है वो एलीट कल्चर आता है हमेशा. इंडियन वेडिंग्स हैज़ बिकम अ कल्चर लाइक दैट, इन फैट वेडिंग्स. तो बेसिकली एलीट कल्चर was thought to be as standard. But what about the culture of the working class people? है ना, वही चीज़ उन्होंने क्वेश्चन किया वहाँ पे कल्चरल स्टडीज़ में. सिमिलरली जो पोस्ट कॉलोनियल फेमिनिस्ट्स आई, उन्होंने कहा विमेन एक अपने आप में एक डोमिनेटिंग आइडियोलॉजी है बिकॉज व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट विमेन यू आर ओनली सीइंग वाइट विमेन एंड देयर लाइव्स एज स्टैंडर्ड्स, दैट हाउ दे वर ऑप्रेस्ड और दे आर ऑप्रेस्ड. Now we are at the timeline for the 20th century feminist thought. First wave जो आया ना, suffragette, they started talking about the voting rights for women. 1830s से 1920s के बीच civil right movement. 1960s 70s में second wave आया. So many groups of women, they came together. Radical groups आए. Deeper engagement with political debates. In fact, they were also talking about what we say is after voting rights, they were also talking about how they have to more take part in the society, in the different aspects of society. One second. Then came the third wave, somewhere around 1980s. Post-feminism भी कहते हैं, cyber-feminism भी कहते हैं, eco-feminism, and the emergence of post-colonial slant to feminist theory. So women of color, black feminism, all of that. And sometimes it is said that now we also have fourth wave, which began with Me Too movement. Yeah, in the second wave, they were also talking about workplace equality. मेरे दिमाग में नहीं आ रहा था. Workplace equality के बारे में उन्होंने बात करनी शुरू की and reproductive rights के बारे में बात करनी शुरू की when these radical groups came together. Third wave में they started talking about lesbian, gays, transgender, LGBTQ individuals and people with disability. So fourth wave, we say that 2010 onwards has begun and it continues to focus on issues like gender equality, sexual harassment, and violence against women. It is often associated with online activism and Me Too movement. Fourth wave of feminism. First wave, we have some works like Mary Ellman's Thinking About Women. Please mark them, note them down, and read about them. Then Kate Millett's Sexual Politics, very important. Germaine Greer's The Female Eunuch, again important one. A number of prominent works of the past were also analyzed. Not just these works, but even works were taken from the past. They were analyzed during this stage so as to study the attitude of male members of the society in general. Second wave, more commonly also known as gynocriticism, gyno associated with women. So it has begun with Elaine Showalter's A Literature of Their Own, extremely important, published in 1970. This phase introduced more or less for the first time a direct analysis of the relationship between female and literature. जैसे वर्जीनिया वुल्फ का वर्क है, ऐसे है, उसमें she talks about visiting a library and wants to look at works which talk about women. And she says that, yes, there were works which talked about women, but they were all written by men. Interesting. So this phase introduced a direct analysis of relationship between female and literature. It was during this phase that female writers and the significance they got in the society was studied. Female characters were studied with an approach to understand the difference between the treatment of female characters at the hands of male and female writers. How female characters are treated by male and female writers. Showalter goes on to talk about the three phases of female writing process. The French concept of feminism even raised the issue of a separate language that belongs exclusively to women. And yes, there has been so much study about this, separate language which actually belongs to women. बात करेंगे इसके बारे में बाद में. Women's studies in post-colonial nations have further refined and added it to them. In India, we have some works, journals like Manushi, the Indian Journal of Gender Studies, and we also have some Yukta, interdisciplinary work in gender studies. It was encouraged even in India. Examples of feminist critics in India are Susi Tharu, Tejaswini Niranjana, and others. They all call attention to other crucial factors in gender identity. Of course, every nation has different problems and they discuss different things. Like in Indian scenario, we have caste and class. We have Dalit women, subaltern figures, as oppressed to the upper caste, upper class, professional women, constitutes correctly new subjects in gender studies, Dalit feminism. Okay? So this is the introduction to feminism a little bit. We are going to continue with it, and in the next session we are going to start with Mary Wollstonecraft with the first wave of feminism in detail. Alright, if you like the video, please share it with others. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to get updates on the new sessions every now and then. Thank you. See you.